Alrighty, so today I'm going to be drawing with a 4-pack of Milwaukee Inkzall permanent markers for the first time. Milwaukee is a tool company, a hardware company. So are they going to actually be able to make a permanent marker that is any good for drawing? I don't know, but I'm looking forward to finding out in today's video. But if I had to guess, these might not be the best for drawing because, well, they're not really meant for drawing in all honesty. They are meant for use on the job site. Inkzall job site markers, that's what it says right there. So I'm not really thinking these are meant to be drawn with, to say the least. But today I'm going to be drawing with this 4-pack right here for the first time, and I'm going to be letting y'all know how all of the different colors actually are and everything like that. But before I go ahead and actually get the markers all out, I first off want to go over the packaging that they are in. Then after that, I'm going to go ahead and get the plastic all off. I'm going to go ahead and actually get one of the markers out. I'm going to let you guys know what the quality of the markers is like, what they feel like, how they sit in hand, what the weight of them is like, and everything like that. And then after that, I'm going to go ahead and grab my SOHO Urban Artist Sketchbook. I'm going to go and flip it to the nearest open page. And then after that, I'm going to go ahead and actually get drawing with all 4 of these markers right here. But first off, as said, we got to go over the packaging, which is very much just a basic red background of packaging, or basic red background of packaging is not really the right way of putting it. It's very much basic informational packaging with a red background. Now, Milwaukee's tools color, their standard color is red, so it does make sense for the background of the packaging to be red, and that's also a really good thing in my personal opinion because it just makes these just a little bit more distinct and eye-catching from a distance. Red is a very eye-catching color. It's used to be eye-catching a lot of times, and so I think they've done a good idea. I think they've done a good idea. I think they've done a good job. Get my words just a little bit jumbled up. I think they've done a good job of making the background for the packaging for these pens right here a red as well. We can see at the top right here, it just says Milwaukee right there, just has the classic Milwaukee logo all in white on that red background. To the side of this, we could see some numbers. And then we could just see it just says 4 pieces right there. To the side of that, it just says Inkzall, trademark, job site markers, white line, and then in black, it just says the same thing, but in both Spanish and French as well. We can see it just says Inkzall right there. And then to the side of that, it just says hard hat clip. Oh, these have a clip that are supposed to go into hard hats or something like that kind of thing. That's pretty interesting. Then we can see like all of the materials that these are supposed to be able to write on right down here. And then there's like a little bit of a photo of one kind of just writing on a piece of like drywall or something like that kind of thing. Not exactly sure. It says clog resistant. Well, I'd hope not. I'd hope that these would be clog resistant because, well, these are felt tip permanent markers. You don't usually get felt tip permanent markers that do clog, but I don't know, maybe you do. I'm not exactly sure, but hopefully these are clog resistant as it says. Then under that just says writes on dust, wet, oily surfaces. We'll have to find out if that actually does do that, but actually I'm not going to be testing that in today's video because actually I'm just going to be drawing on paper today. So it says dust, wet, and oily surfaces, but is it going to draw on just a clean paper surface pretty well? I don't know, but I'm looking forward to finding out. And then to the very bottom of the packaging right here, it just says fine point colored permanent right there on a little bit of a gray background with a little bit of a fine point right there. And then we could just see the pens in the center just like that. And that's pretty much all there is to the front of the packaging. Let's go move on to the back now, which we can see is all just a white background with black and gray details on it. We see it just says Milwaukee right there once again. Just says hard hat clip right there and demonstrates how it's supposed to be used, which is something that I do appreciate. It says up to 72-hour cap off life, which is pretty cool. And then after that, it just says anti-roll design, lanyard hole, and then it just has like a photo over right here, Inkzall stylus and fine point. Oh no, this is a different one. This is not, these are not the stylus. So this is just an advertisement for another one of their markers. They also make a stylus and just a permanent marker, I guess. I'm not exactly sure. We just see some recycling stuff and everything like that kind of thing. Milwaukee Tool, just says their location, MilwaukeeTool.com, engineered by Milwaukee Tool, ink made in Germany, marker assembled in China, and then after that it just says conforms to, blah, 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 health and safety requirements, and then there's just the barcode right there. And that's pretty much all there is to the packaging. It's overall a more simple and informational piece of packaging than not, but I do feel like it does its job well, and so as such, I really can't hate on it one bit. Before I go ahead and get this packaging packaging all opened up, I do first off want to go ahead and just grab myself a little bit of a screenshot real quick. So I'm just going to spread my hands out, or maybe I'll just grab this just like that kind of thing and just kind of hold it up just a little bit more so than not to the camera, so we can really get a good idea of what these pens look like for the screenshot and whatnot. Got to grab myself a little bit of a thumbnail for the video, so just grabbing that right now. Hopefully that will work. Well, let's go ahead and get this plastic all off now and see how easy this is to actually open up. Excuse me. Although with this plastic, this sort of plastic is always a pain, so it's not being the easiest to open up in all honesty, but we can kind of poke all the markers through the paper in the back, so ain't too big a deal by any means. There we go, just like that. Go and just peel that back, and let's go ahead and get all of these. Actually, there we go, just like that. And let's just go ahead. Just like that. Got them all out now. Not the easiest to open, but I think that's probably by design. They want to make sure nobody's shoplifting these or anything like that kind of thing, so it does make sense why they would make the packaging just a little bit harder to open than not. I'm going to go and put all of these to the side just real quick, and I'm going to go ahead and now take a look at what this pen actually looks like. We can see, depending on the ink color, they have differentiating caps and whatnot, just to let you know what different colors the pens are and everything like that kind of thing. We can see the black permanent marker, of course, is a black cap, which is something I do appreciate. The hard hat clip right here is very interesting to just stick onto a normal shirt. Okay, let's just test it out. Onto a normal shirt. It does just fine. It sticks onto a normal shirt just fine, so certainly cannot complain about that. We can see black cap, red body for the pen. Just says Milwaukee right there, fine point. 48-22-31004Y, and it just says Inkzall trademark right there. Moving on the back, we can see Milwaukee is just embossed into the actual body of the pen right there, which is something I do appreciate. And the actual pen itself does have a decent amount of texture to it. It's definitely a much more interesting looking and interesting textured design than something like, let's say, a Sharpie, which is just round plastic that has no different textures or anything like that kind of thing. This definitely has some different textures, which might make this pen easier to hold over long periods of time or something like that kind of thing. Or maybe it's just there to make this pen look a little bit more interesting than not. We can see there are some grip lines right here on the cap itself, which is something that is nice. And we can see there is a little bit of a hole in the back of this pen. Not exactly sure what that's for. That's probably where they were casting this pen in plastic or something like that kind of thing. And that's like the cutoff point. We see there's a little bit of a lanyard strap in the lid right there. And that's pretty much all there is look-wise to the black pen. Let's just go ahead and get the lid off just like that. And we can see the inside right there. Pretty much just looks like a Sharpie, just with a black background right here and just a pretty basic grip line and stuff like that kind of thing. Just holding this pen in my hand. It's pretty light with the cap off. With the cap on, and the cap does go on pretty nicely. It is more heavily weighted towards the back, I definitely have to say. Smell-wise, I can definitely smell this pen 100%. This pen smells a lot, to say the least. Definitely doesn't smell as much as something like, let's say, a super big Sharpie or something like that kind of thing, but it does smell nonetheless. And there's another thing I like about this pen, is that the cap, oh man, it just goes on so... Oh, that's so satisfying. That is really nice, to say the least. I like that. I do like that, I will admit. But in hand, this pen with the cap off, it's much lighter than not, and it's pretty evenly weighted. It's not really weighted more towards the front or the back, but it's pretty evenly weighted, but maybe it is weighted a little bit more towards the front with the cap off. But once you put the cap on the back, it is, of course, much more weighted towards the back than not. This is definitely best for writing, and with the cap off, it's definitely best for drawing, if you ask me at least. And as a whole, this feels pretty nice in hand. The texture on the pen itself doesn't really give me any sort of a different grip or anything like that kind of thing. Maybe a little bit, but really not much. This sort of little area right here, it's kind of nice because my finger kind of sits on that very nicely kind of thing, but it's really nothing too big kind of thing. The ergonomics of this pen are all right. They're not bad by any means. They're also nothing particularly special. They're maybe a little bit better than a normal Sharpie or something like that kind of thing, but nothing to any insane degree by any means, I definitely have to say. But, you know, as a whole, the weight of this pen is very evenly weighted, maybe a little bit more towards the front than not, unless you have the cap on the back, which makes this pen a little bit more back weighted than not. I definitely have to say the overall Weight of the pen is just pretty light overall as well. It's a permanent marker, really no big surprise. Feels pretty good in hand, pretty easy to hold. Really no easier nor no harder to hold than something like, let's say, a Sharpie, which would be the main competitor to this pen. And as a whole, you know, not a bad pen to hold one bit. Not a bad pen to draw with or write with. It appears initially at least. Taking a look at the other pens I've got, they're all pretty much the exact same, but just with different colored lids. All the lids are the exact same, they're just different colors as well, kind of thing. Take a look at that. We can see that one's green, so the inside portion is a different color as well, so that does also let you know. So just in case you lose the cap and you need to put a different cap on or something like that kind of thing, you still know what color the pen is once you actually take the cap off, which is something that is nice. And this one, of course, has the best look of them all because it's red on red on red, which is something that is a little bit better than not if you ask me at least. But I do suppose without further ado, there's only one more thing left for me to really do, and that's to go ahead and actually draw with this pen right here, with these pens right here. So let's go ahead and get my SOHO Urban Artist Sketchbook that I have right here all opened up just real quick. And let's go ahead and flip to the nearest open page if I possibly can. There we go. Now that I'm on the nearest open page, let's go ahead and I think start off with the black Milwaukee Inkzall permanent marker. And let's go ahead and start off with this one. And let's go ahead and I think start off with drawing a fish as well. So let's go ahead and see how this pen actually draws on paper, how it is to actually draw with, and just what it feels like in general when you're just writing with it on normal paper and everything like that kind of thing. So let's go ahead and start off with the jaw of this fish. Right off the bat, the line is very nice and thick. Well, not thick per se, but it's very nice and clean. It's a very clean line. There's no sort of, what's the right way of putting it? There's no sort of fading, initially at least, and right off the bat, it just goes pretty good. Some pens take a minute to warm up. This pen, not so much. Pretty standard for permanent markers, though, I will acknowledge. But let's just go ahead and just add some teeth and whatnot. Do a little bit of an eye right there. Just like that. And that's pretty much all there is to the fish. Just right off the bat kind of thing. As a whole, I'd have to say the felt tip feels maybe a little bit harder than a Sharpie felt tip, but not like insanely harder by any means. I do think if you use this Sharpie, no, this is not a Sharpie. I do think if you use this permanent marker on a rough material, it might take out the felt tip a little bit faster than not, frankly put. It feels a little bit harder than a Sharpie, but not much so. On paper, it does make a little bit of noise, but it's got a very nice, satisfyingly smooth line all the way through for sure. You definitely can get like some thinner lines and some thicker lines just depending on how you hold the pen as well. And yeah, no fading right off the bat. Overall, pretty nice, distinct color that is not fading too much by any means either. Definitely is not fading to any significant degree. That is something that I do appreciate a decent amount. So as a whole, to draw with right off the bat, it's definitely not bad with the cap off, weight-wise. And the lines, they come through color-wise much more distinct than not, along with also just size-wise a little bit more distinct than not. It does make a little bit of noise, and does it bleed through? I definitely do think it would bleed through if I just kind of kept it on the paper just for a little bit longer than not, but no bleed through on the first one at least. As a whole, you know, not a bad pen to draw with right off the bat. And honestly, just due to the fact that the nib, that the felt tip is probably a little bit more firm than a Sharpie, I do think that the felt tip might actually stay in, what's the right way of putting this? It might actually stay as it's supposed to be for longer than a Sharpie, because a lot of times with Sharpies, they kind of deform after a while, after you use it time and time and time again. They start really deforming and whatnot kind of thing. This pen, I think, might be a little bit better in that way, just because the felt tip is a little bit more firm, a little bit harder. Let's go ahead and now do another drawing with another one of the colors, and I think now I'm going to go ahead and do green. No, I'm going to do red. I'm going to do red now. So let's go and get the cap all off and let's see how the red looks as well. I think I'm going to do a little bit of a leg man. So let's start up here, do some legs and whatnot, and just seeing if this stuff smears. No smearing or anything like that kind of thing. No big surprise. This is a felt tip pen. After all, felt tip pens do not generally smear, so I'm not surprised that this one is not smearing either. Let's go and just add some stuff like that. And just an eye right there, an eye right there, a little bit of a nose. These pens do smell just a little bit for sure. So if you're using this pen in an enclosed environment, you definitely do need to be a little bit careful of that. But as a whole, the red comes across as being a little bit darker than not. It's definitely not a super bright red by any means. It's also not an insanely dark red, but it does come across more like a burgundy, like an almost burgundy red than not. It's not quite burgundy, but it's like a reddish burgundy, I definitely have to say. Definitely not a super bright red by any means, but, you know, pretty thick lines. Once again, pretty distinct lines color-wise as well. The color does not appear to be fading or anything like that kind of thing. We can see the color kind of loop over itself, so where you kind of like have two lines over one kind of thing, it definitely does get a little bit thicker, a little bit darker, but as a whole, the red looks pretty good if you ask me. Let's go ahead and move on to the green now. And what do I want to draw with the green pen? What do I want to draw with the green pen? I'm thinking I might draw... what do I want to draw? What do I want to draw? What do I want to draw? I'm not sure. What do I want to draw with this pen right here? What am I thinking? I might draw... I'm trying to think of what I want to draw. What do I want to draw with this pen? I think I might draw a knife. I'll draw a knife with this pen. So let's go ahead and start off with one straight line. Go all the way down like that. It definitely doesn't like kind of going the opposite way, like you kind of want to pull it towards you. That's really what it appreciates. And the ink, when you're putting it down, it definitely does spread out just a little bit as well. So this is definitely not a pen you really want to use for super small details or anything like that kind of thing, but it doesn't do them horribly by any means. And there we go. Just like that, the knife is done. Let's go ahead and now use the blue one as well. And I think I'm going to go and draw myself a little bit of an anime girl, I'm thinking, just quite quickly. And I'm really able to smell the pen right now. I'm really able to smell it. It's coming across quite intensely, to say the least. And there we go. Just like that. Now, there's a little bit more to do. Gotta clean it up just a little bit. And there we go, just like that. I think I'm going to do one more drawing. I think I'm going to end this off with a fish, with the black pen once again. And then after that, I think I'm going to go ahead and kind of let you guys know what my final thoughts on these pens are. And I'm honestly surprised. They have not bled through the paper pretty much at all, which is something that is a little bit better than Sharpies. You can be, if you're just even not careful with a Sharpie, just a little bit, it'll bleed through the paper. Even on this paper, which is like, what's this paper? This is like 75-pound paper. It's not super thin paper by any means. But with these pens, I'm not really having that issue, which is a little bit of a surprise. But let's go ahead and draw just a little bit of a fish. And when I say a little bit of a fish, I do mean a little bit of a fish. Just drawing a little bit of a small fish now. And there we go. Just like that. I think that's the final drawing of today's video. Now it's time for me to go ahead and let you guys know what my final thoughts are on the Milwaukee Inkzall permanent markers that I have used for the first time in today's video. Do I like these pens or do I dislike them? I'd have to say, for drawing, you know, these aren't so bad. For drawing, they really are not so bad. The packaging, as a whole, is mostly information, but not bad packaging by any means. The pens are pretty easy to hold. They're very light. And when you don't have the cap on, they are pretty easy to draw with because the weight is maybe a little bit more towards the front than towards the back. But with the cap on, they're probably easy to write with because the weight will be more towards the back, I definitely have to say. I'd have to say overall the quality of these pens is pretty solid. And when you're actually drawing with them, they make a little bit of noise. The felt tip is very firm, definitely firmer than on a Sharpie. And I definitely have to say they prefer being pulled towards you rather than away from you. If you try to pull them a certain way, just like with many felt tip markers, they'll kind of feel a little bit weird kind of thing and not appreciate it. So that is something to keep in mind. I'd have to say the ink definitely does spread out just a little bit as you're kind of moving the marker on the paper. The ink kind of soaks into the paper very quickly. No sort of smearing or anything like that. The color of all of the inks that you get are very distinct. They're very much exactly what you kind of think they would be. Red is red, green is green, blue is blue, black is black kind of thing. And as a whole, the colors are very distinct. I experienced no fading at all during today's video, which is something I really like. And as a whole, you know, I don't think I mind drawing with the Milwaukee Tools Inkzall permanent markers one bit. I really don't think I mind, in all honesty. You know, they're not bad to draw with. And honestly, depending on how these age, it really does depend. These pens are either going to age like a Sharpie, where the felt tip kind of degrades over time and where they start fading and stuff like that kind of thing. But if they don't do that, depending on how these age, I might actually like these more than Sharpies. They're about the same to draw with as a Sharpie, but just with a little bit of a firmer tip, which is something I actually like. And as long as these age a little bit better than Sharpies and they don't fade and start fading and do all that sort of fun stuff, I'm thinking these might actually be better to draw with than a Sharpie, and I think they might last a little bit longer. Now, don't quote me on that. This is just a first impressions review after all, but if these do really last a little bit longer than a Sharpie, they might be a better buy, in all honesty. I don't know how expensive these pens are, I've forgotten, but might be more expensive than a Sharpie, but Sharpies are also pretty expensive after all. So, yeah, who knows? As a whole, though, I enjoyed drawing with these pens in today's video, and I'd have to give them a solid 3 out of 4. They're not like the best pens I've ever drawn with by any means, but, you know, they're pretty dang good, and I like them much more so than not. And they definitely do deserve a 3 out of 4 for drawing, which is pretty dang good for pens that you're not really meant to draw with, in all honesty. Well, I think that's pretty much all I had to say for today's video. Let me know in the comments down below if you guys have tried the Milwaukee Tools Inkzall permanent markers before. If you guys have, let me know what you guys think of them. And if you guys haven't, let me know what you guys think of them based off of this video today. And of course, also make sure to like and subscribe for more content. I have my Instagram, my book, my merch, my P.O. box, and my main channel all in the description down below. Go check it all out. But you know, thank you so much for watching, y'all. Till the next one, stay safe and peace, and have a great one. Yes, sir, you know what I'm saying?